Welcome back to What the Hype. This week, we will be taking a look back at some of our favorite TV shows from when we were younger. We're dubbing this episode the TV shows that raised this episode. And we actually got inspired to reminisce on some of our favorite titles from the 90s and early 2000s on episode 48 of What the Hype, which was our mailbag episode. We asked in our Instagram stories what you'd like to see us cover in a future episode of the podcast. And we got a response from Layla who said, can you talk about old 90s, 2000s TV shows like Malcolm in the Middle? Well, Layla, thank you so much for the recommendation because we really loved this idea. And yeah, we thought that this would be a fun topic to discuss since we're in the summer months. Things are kind of slowing down. So I'm
These
here
shows
with...
are kind of like Malcolm in the Middle. I wouldn't...
Yeah. You know, did you all watch Malcolm in the Middle when it was on? Because I did, but I feel like I have like almost no recollection of the show.
And they're rebooting it, or they're doing a reunion, is that right?
Yes, they are technically I think it's called a revival when the cast is coming back. Because like a reboot is when it's like an entirely remade version with different actors. So they have a bunch of the original cast coming back, including Frankie Muniz, who spearheaded the original. So
I think I last saw him in an episode of Criminal Minds.
Ooh.
Oh.
Did he do it?
Last time that's a good question.
Did he do it or did he have it done unto him? This is everyone like big name that's on Criminal Minds is either they're the killer or
I was going to say, I think the last time I saw Frankie Muniz was on Dancing with the Stars.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was a while ago. All right. So to kick things off, I wanted to ask you all, like, what kind of shows did you find yourselves gravitating towards during your formative years? Like, was it one genre or did you find yourselves kind of jumping around to see what was going to stick? Because thinking back on this for this discussion, I kind of realized that I definitely was watching kind of like shows that were similar to each other in some way.
I think for me, there was just a ton of really good, what you would call children's programming. And it really spanned the gamut of genre and like form. There was a lot of good animated stuff. So like, you know, Saturday morning cartoons. I think we mentioned before, Kids WB was like where I lived. But then also there were really good live action shows happening on Nick, you know, for both weekends and weeknights. Really just a ton of shows that I really loved. So when I was thinking about the premise of this, I just kept thinking back to, again, because, you know, we call it the shows that raised us, but cartoons and really just all of those like 90s TV that was made for kids, but never, I think for my matter of preference, never talked down to them. Just featured kids as the protagonists, basically. Kids or teens.
Yeah. When I look back on it, I realized just how much TV I did watch as a kid. And I know I'm on the kind of front end of millennials because I was born in 1982, so I'm right there. But I feel like there was so much good programming for us as we were growing up, and this makes me think back to the podcast episode that we did on TV dads when we're talking about the shows that raised us. It makes me think about the dads who helped raise us, and you know, if you're going from Al Bundy to Homer Simpson, you know, to so many different types of characters, Carl Winslow, like you're shaped by all these individuals. And then you're also shaped by these other TV shows that maybe didn't have as prominent father figures in them or mother figures in some cases. So I don't know though that I could point and find a theme. To Eric's point, I do think there was just so much available that you could easily jump from one thing to the next, right? Like you could be watching Legends of the Hidden Temple one day, and then the next day you're jumping over to Saved by the Bell, and then you're watching cartoons on Saturday morning.
Those are all such good callbacks. I love that.
Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, I think part of it too was that, you know, it was harder for our parents to regulate what we were watching if they weren't in the room because it was all just on TV. Nowadays, I'm sure kids are mostly raised by streaming services, and it's really easy to make sure you put up those guardrails so that they're only watching kids content, which is good, like, because my niece is 5. She knows how to work the TV and how to get into Netflix and stuff like that, and she knows she's supposed to go straight to the kids icon, to find
But
all
she
her
doesn't.
favorites and stuff. Yeah, I mean, like, technically, I didn't want to, like, I meant to tell my brother, like, this is such a false sense of security, because she could just, like, click on his profile.
Right.
It's not like
very
locked.
easy I wonder if they thought about that. Like,
probably not. Like I said, like, in his case, it's false sense of security. Maybe I'll bring it up now that I've called him out on the show. But, like, last time I was babysitting her, I had this thought, but she already knows that, like, she wants to watch, like, the new Garfield movie. She's got to go over to her profile, which is, like, the colorful kids icon. So.
And I'm sure we'll touch on this, but I think one of the greatest values of these shows for us as consumers was that we had to wait. We weren't in
and
a
also,
world.
like, if you weren't home, you missed it.
Right. Unless you had a VCR.
It was impossible to be right. This is pre-DVR. I think it's safe to say. I don't think we're dating ourselves. I think that DVR is just like a brand new. I mean, it just came out yesterday, right? But I feel like there were episodes that got missed, and it was difficult or impossible to be a completionist. It was just kind of one of those shows. Well, a lot more shows were episodic versus serialized as well. So even like the main shows I was watching, it wouldn't penalize you if you didn't catch a particular show, or they'd run them out of order anyway, so it never particularly mattered.
Yeah, especially those going back to those animated shows like you both were talking about. Like, I mean, I remember really loving Nickelodeon's Doug specifically, because you have to be distinct when you talk about Doug. You have
not Disney's Doug. Screw that.
Yeah, not Disney's Doug. Nickelodeon's
Wait, Disney
Doug.
has a Doug?
Disney had a Doug. It's
picked
huge.
it up. Yeah, after it stopped airing on Nickelodeon, and then it became part of the, like, what was it, the Saturday morning lineup or Sunday morning lineup for ABC.
I protested and didn't watch the Disney version. I think they recast some of the voice actors too, or they just had it.
Yes.
Like Roger was
Peter.
rich all of a sudden, and
he was. Yeah, I remember that from the pilot. And then Doug got, like, they gave him, instead of like the short sleeves, they gave him like the 3/4 sleeve shirt.
That's it. Doug's got to have short sleeves, otherwise it's not Doug. Exactly. # not my Doug.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, that was like with like that was like around the Pepper Ann brace face kind of years. So I think we were probably aging out of it anyway a little bit. Most of us, so.
But kids these days just don't know how good they have it.
So true. They almost have too much to choose from.
It's true, and because they can watch all the stuff we watched, and they don't have to wait for the following week, or they don't have to wait for even the following season in some cases, right? Like, I'm thinking about a show, and we'll talk about Saved by the Bell, where you could go onto Peacock and you could watch all the seasons, and you don't have to wait. There's no anticipation. Like, I remember when, sounds like such old man on the porch, but I remember when, you lingered with anticipation in terms of what was coming the following week, never mind what was coming next season, right? Like, there were legit cliffhangers, and I guess you have a little bit of that today, but it's not as fun, I don't think.
Yeah, because you were able to, like, even when we got a little older, like I think that the titles I picked for the purpose of this episode, definitely I skewed closer, like, more towards like what impacted me in like my tween years or early teenage years. But stuff like that is like, it was a community watching experience. You probably had friends that were watching the same thing, so you would all get to school the next day, and like during lunch or before, a period, you would be talking about what happened on that show. I remember doing that with Dawson's Creek, which I was definitely watching way too young, but it was like all the older kids were watching it, so of course you wanted to watch the same thing because you thought they were cool, and so yeah. But Micah, you brought up Saved by the Bell this is a few times now, and so I think we should get into talking about some of these titles that really raised us. I know that was a big one for you. Do you want to kick us off and talk about Saved by the Bell?
Oh wow, it's a lot of pressure to get us rolling, but Saved by the Bell debuted in 1989. So most of our listeners were probably not alive at that time. I'm just kidding. There was actually a precursor show to it when some of the kids were in high school or excuse me, middle school. And then when we went to high school, it became Saved by the Bell. I know that there were some spin-off. I want to use the right terminology here. I know you kind of corrected me earlier, Pam, but like spin-offs in terms of the college years and the new class. And I didn't realize actually, and this just goes to show, I guess, how immersed I was in Saved by the Bell when I was growing up, in that the new class ran for way more seasons than the original Saved by the Bell did. The original Saved by the Bell actually only ran for 5 seasons, but for folks who aren't familiar with it, it was a teen sitcom that followed the lives of a group of high school friends navigating adolescence at Bayside High School in California. And really at its core, the show was all about friendship, dating, school antics, and growing up, all wrapped in a brightly colored, humorous, and slightly surreal package. And, in terms of why I loved it, it was relatable, right? One of the things that often gets talked about a lot with Saved by the Bell is the fashion, right? You had the scrunchies and the acid wash jeans and the oversized blazers, the neon graphics, the comfy the corny transitions of the show. That was the other thing about it, right? There's this cool factor almost. And I'm curious, did either of you watch the show?
Yeah, I remember watching reruns of this. There are a lot of iconic callbacks to Saved by the Bell in pop culture. Like one that I still use a lot. My brother and I still use a lot is Jessie Spano's "I'm so excited, I'm so scared" from when she gets hooked on caffeine pills. Like
man.
But yeah, like this was an iconic show for sure.
Yeah. I definitely caught probably only reruns. I'm seeing now that it ran for 4 seasons from 1988 to 92, or 89 to 92. And so definitely you got to admire a show that sets out to do a thing. I assume they're all freshmen when they start, and then it's their senior year in the final season. But I definitely caught episodes exclusively in rerun, probably in the mid to late 90s. So I never that was one of the shows that I never watched close enough to get plot, like grand character arcs. I would say Boy Meets World was more my high school or middle school drama kind of dramedy show. But Saved by the Bell was classic. Like it was definitely, I always admired the older kids. Like people went to high school like when I was in middle school, and so Saved by the Bell was like a show about them to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's interesting that you make that comparison to Boy Meets World, because I really think the characters in Saved by the Bell were not necessarily complex characters. They were types, right? You had Zach, who was the cool kid, right? You had Kelly, who was the girl that everybody was fawning over, and then Slater was the jock, and Lisa was the fashion icon, and Screech was the nerd. And how would you classify Jessie, Pam? It's just kind of
just like the smart, like the bookworm
smart,
kind of, but
like
she was also hot. Like they were all really pretty people, obviously.
They're good looking people.
Yeah. Like she was supposed to be the nerd, but like I think that might have been like the first like hot nerd that we saw on television.
A Hermione of sorts that predated Harry Potter. But and we all grew up with them, and we saw versions of ourselves in them, and that goes to the point that we were just talking about in terms of them not really being overly complex. They were identifiable for a lot of us. And I think most importantly, Saved by the Bell was on all the time, right? Weekday mornings, after school, weekends. So if you were a teen that was growing up in the 90s, you could find Saved by the Bell pretty much any day of the week. And I have like memories of coming home from school and going and watching this show.
Yeah, like I think Eric and I were both saying like we would catch reruns. I don't think I had any concept of just how long the show had been going on, but for a while. I just knew that like you could come home around 3 or 4 o'clock. They'd have like
Right.
an hour block, 2 hour block of Saved by the Bell on, TBS or whatever in syndication, or that it would be on like early in the morning. I think I remember later on realizing that they had the middle school version with like some of the cast. I think they had Mark Paul Gosselaar was obviously he's always been like the anchor, Zach Morris, but I think that um like Screech was still in there, right? And a couple of the
Yeah.
others that kind of pop into the like the more iconic years. But yeah, this was a show that like it was almost like timeless, even though, to your point, it actually really started at the beginning of the 90s. So
And
and then the other thing I wanted to circle back to is, Eric, you were saying that you never really like remember any like specific character arcs and stuff like that. I think that a show like Saved by the Bell was kind of meant to be like that. It was very almost like a procedural in a way that you could hop in. There was really like you didn't really need context for what happened
Yeah,
the
I would
episode
refer to that
before,
as
the
like
week before.
episodic storytelling.
Yeah,
Like it's just like every
exactly.
episode is self-contained, and then any one
Yeah.
episode in any order.
And there's some stuff that like overlaps, but more of in a sitcom way, like the will they won't they with Zach and Kelly, or like is Kelly dating Slater this week, stuff like that. But
will Screech finally get on a date with Lisa?
right.
Poor Screech. But
I know.
and as somebody who grew up on Long Island too, the fact that diner culture is very big here. They had the Max, right? They would always go there
Yeah.
after school, and it was kind of their big hangout spot. And I guess that's also kind of 90s
Is
as
it like
well.
the Honker Burger?
Right.
A
Yeah.
little bit, yeah.
A little bit, yeah.
And
Man, well, I know that there was a Saved by the Bell pop-up that was designed to look like the diner in Chicago a few years ago.
That's right. There was.
a funny thing I heard recently, though, too, was that Mr. Belding is supposed to be 35 at the time of Saved by the Bell, which
And they had him balding like that. I mean, not that male pattern baldness
Listen, it
can't
can
start
happen
early,
to you.
but
Yeah.
but as somebody who grew up watching the series, to hear that he's 35 and now like I'm 42, it's just kind of like, wow, makes you feel a little old. But
Makes you feel, yeah.
in terms of
If you
the
like, at least I still got all my hair.
yes, thankfully. Just in terms of the impact that it had on me, an article that I read recently on it that defined it so well, it called it a TV generation's comfort food.
Ooh.
And I really like that. We've talked a little bit here about the nostalgia factor. There's something about Saved by the Bell that evokes a certain period in time, and they did such a good job of it.
Agreed. I'm happy to see that on this list because for somebody for who it was meaningful to, more meaningful than, I was flipping channels, I would sit and watch it, but somebody that cared about this show to talk about it is always a treat.
Eric, do you want to give us one of yours?
I'll do one of the animated ones that I
Okay.
watched on repeat because this is one that I remember coming home. It was on at a weird time and on at a weird channel. I think the channel that it aired at, it's the Jumanji animated series, and it aired at like 3:30 in the afternoon on weekdays on, I don't even think it was UPN, it was BKN was the network, I think. And it was a channel where literally back when there were only about 60 channels, this was one of the channels that if you turned it on late at night or in the middle of the morning, there would be nothing broadcast. It would be static. So it was I'm pretty sure, thanks to IMDb, I'm convinced this isn't a fever dream that I had, that there was a Jumanji animated TV series. But yeah, I would get home from school, and if the bus wasn't like late dropping kids off, I would arrive at like 3:31 or 3:32. So I'm not even sure I've seen the first minute of these episodes of this show. But it ran for 3 years. There were 40 episodes. And actually the voice cast is 100% all-star. I'm surprised to find that I recognize some of these names, including Debbie Derryberry, Tim Curry, of course, is in pretty much all the episodes, and Ashley Johnson, who we know from voicing Ellie on The Last of Us video game. So, also Bill Fagerbake, who voices Patrick Star in the SpongeBob stuff. So, definitely a cast of who's who for voice talent. I just remember it being an endlessly watchable show. It's one of those shows where in order for the animated series to work, they kind of have to ignore the movie. That's the whole reason people are watching the show. I think the Back to the Future animated series did this too, where it's like, that arc of the movies, and Pam, I'm still excited to talk about the sequels in the future, but like they want to destroy the time machine in the movies, but in the animated series, it's like, no, we're going to keep going.
Yeah.
We're going back in time every week at 4 p.m. or 9 a.m. Central. We're going back in time somewhere. So Jumanji, the board game, they basically kind of redid the story of the movie to where Alan, who's the character played by Robin Williams in the movie, is always in Jumanji. So it's not like he gets out. It's not like there's this catharsis with his dad or anything. In fact,
no
I
trauma.
don't think his dad's
He's
ever
just
brought
happy,
up. Yeah,
happy to be in Jumanji.
He's their permanent friend. I mean, he's still trapped there. Like, they're trying to get him out, but it takes 40 episodes. Like he's their correspondent, their Jumanji in-board game correspondent, who's generally optimistic and, funny in the way that the character vaguely is. But Peter and Judy are the two kids, brother and sister, who are week after week going into the board game, and what fresh hell will be wrought and come and face them, and what kind of adventures they have to go on. I gotta say, the other thing about this show, zippy. Every episode's 22 minutes, as all those shows were, because 30 minutes with commercial break, 22 minutes, nothing happens. I mean, it's over like that, and it just
fast
was...
forward through them, though.
I mean, you can't, yeah. It's like...
Now, was it your initial love of Jumanji, the movie, that turned you on to this show?
Yes. And what's interesting is, Jumanji is a sad movie. Jumanji is like, you got to watch it on a good day. Like, before, otherwise you'll just, like, really kind of ruminate on some of the darker, like, thoughts like regret, life regret, and playfulness versus solitude. It's like Hook in that way, too. Like, you can't really get an adventure. Like, there are exciting parts of Jumanji, but I wouldn't say that it's an adventure movie. Whereas, like, or not without its severe, like, mortality. But the adventure animated show is just a romp. Every episode is a romp. And so I think that I did come into it because of the movie, and I loved the movie and would actually rewatch the movie quite a bit. But it wasn't funny in the way that the show was funny, and it wasn't fun in the way that the show was fun. So
I like that you brought this one up, though, because I forgot about it, and I only have vague recollections, but I think in my head it kind of blends with the Wild Thornberrys, because they're both kind of in jungly type areas.
That was also very jungly, yeah.
Yeah, but I do, as soon as you said this, I was like, yeah, I can picture the animated Adam Parrish, older Adam Parrish in the jungle.
Alan,
so
it was kind of a unique-ish animation style, I guess. Nothing looked like it. I guess, exactly. And it's just one of those shows that, I hope doesn't get forgotten. Like, I really liked it, but it was one of the shows I watched the most religiously, especially in terms of animated series. It was like this and Jackie Chan Adventures and maybe The Mummy, which is funny because The Mummy also was based on the movies.
It is interesting, though, how you can look at a movie as a child and be so kind of captivated by it because of the action adventure, the fun of it. But then, to your point, like, there's a lot darker themes to Jumanji. In particular, like, I think about how the same actor plays his father, plays Van Pelt, right?
Yep.
And so
huge.
He's basically being chased around Jumanji by his father. Like, you could make that
menaced and terrorized, and his dad was very domineering and controlling, and all that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love when childhood properties kind of do that, because the same thing happens in I believe isn't it in the 2003 Peter Pan?
Yes.
Jason Isaacs plays the Mr. Darling,
Darling,
and then also Hook. And it makes sense when you have a father figure that's so strong that it would, like, almost like a nightmarish situation would morph him into like an extreme version. But it's also really cool, like when you watch movies like that as a child and it doesn't click. Because I vividly remember watching Jumanji again as an adult and realizing it's like, oh, that's the same guy, and but he's in makeup, and it does add, to Micah's point, a completely new layer to everything.
Well, and the other thing that I'm sure is true with Back to the Future animated series, which for how much I love that trilogy, I really have to pay more attention to the animated series. But Jumanji doesn't get to explore the inner workings of Jumanji. You don't go into Jumanji in Jumanji. You find
in
out
later
everything.
Movies you do.
Yeah, everything is coming out of the game. You're not living there in the way that the animated show would, really had carte blanche on developing that world. And so what may have been the most exciting part of the movie that didn't end up happening in the movie is like this exciting premise that the animated series has. So you love to adventure. I always used to love when they would go into the game, which, to your point, Micah, I think the later movies do that pretty well. But the later movies were not even an apple in the eye of their creators by the time that the original movie came out. But yeah, it really accomplished a lot. I have a lot of fondness, and that's the one I really thought of highlighting for today.
Nice.